Hello, everybody. This is our fourth webinar, and we decided that at this stage, is now a good opportunity to introduce ourselves. So R&D stands for Research and Development Team, and today we're going to tell you more about who we are, what we do, and maybe welcome some of your questions as well. So let's start. First and foremost, research and development team members are employees of NUM.
So I'll take over here. Yes, we're paid members of the National Ugly Mugs team, and it's an organisation for sex workers. So basically, National Ugly Mugs, we are a reporting and alert scheme for the sex working community. So we take reports of crime and we send alerts out to sex workers across the UK. Currently, we've got over 6,600 independent sex workers as members and about 1,400 organisation members who take reports from other sex workers. So the research and development team is aimed to be representative of all areas of the sex work industry. So we've drawn members from the stripping industry, from porn, from full service sex work, from all sectors of full service sex work. So independent online sex workers, brothel workers, street workers. So anybody who's involved in the sex industry, camming, all sorts. So we try to represent the whole of the sector. Within our role within NUM really is that we try to balance helping to steer, challenge and react to NUM as a service for sex workers to make sure that they're meeting the needs of sex workers and that their aims are aligned with and accountable to the sex worker movement. And then along with that, we do specific work projects for National Ugly Mugs as well.
Thank you. So we tried to combine all the things that we do for NUM into 3 groups. And I think first we need to tell you that research and development team has been around for about 1.5 years now. And the 2 main things that we have been deeply involved in were the digital build and the knowledge translation. These 2 things we're going to tell you more about in the next slides.
Another thing is, as our name kind of suggests, is that we've also been involved in research, mostly by impacting on NUM's research processes. Like we're making sure that it's inclusive and ethical research for sex workers, and like kind of steering NUM's research processes into that way. And we've also done our own research projects in collaboration with NUM. Some of us have, some of us are doing individual research projects in collaboration with NUM, or also to feed into the work and the service delivery of NUM. We've also been involved into the employment of staff, meaning into like the application system, the application process, the interviews, and then also selection of people, just to make sure that we have some sex work inclusion in the selection of new staff. And we've also been tweeting. You probably have seen our NUMRAD account on Twitter, where we just try to be involved in like the online debates a little bit more.
Another sort of part of what we do is we do a lot of reaching out into other platforms and other communities. So obviously we have links to within the sex working community and sex worker-led organisations and lobbying groups. And we also do things like we'll attend local multi-agency groups multi-agency forums where people are discussing sex worker clinics or policing or service delivery. So there's all important areas, and we represent NUMRAD within those groups.
Some of those groups are come in the forms of unions. So, for example, I sit in one of the porn unions, and we try and reflect some of the work that NUM is doing, so that people in other parts of our industry that may not have access to all of the sort of resources that some of the sort of political heart are quite commonly discussing, they're actually able to discover what NUM's up to. There's a number of different unions that are supporting sex workers, and different parts of the sector have different accesses to them. So that's one of the things which we try and keep them up to date with what we're up to. Then another part of our sort of reaching out work involves delivering workshops, sometimes being on panels at conferences. It involves kind of communicating what our sector is dealing with, as well as what we're doing as an organisation.
Yes, so to sum up, we use our experience in sex work and our experience in sex worker and some other types of activism to inform and steer the work of NUM. But together with that, we also provide NUM with links back to our communities, so that when NUM as an organization need to make specific decisions, it's not just our personal experiences and opinions of sex work that NUM relies on, but we can take these questions to wider communities of sex workers and have their input into what later becomes services or other decisions made for the organization. So knowledge translation, one of those things that I promised we were going to talk about later. So knowledge translation, does anybody want to tell people what it is?
So one of the first descriptions I've had about knowledge translation is to think of it as a bit like a bottle of wine. So someone has spent a while developing, they've grown these grapes, they've made some wine from them, they've ended up with this beautiful resource, but then maybe someone has accessed it and just put it in their wine cellar, and it sits there for ages, and maybe it doesn't get out to like the actual original purpose for it. It doesn't actually get shared at a table. It ends up in someone's cellar. So it's about getting that sharing out rather than letting the information that's been developed and learned just sitting in potentially like an academic space or a space where it's not impacting the community it was designed for. That's one element.
I think we could go a bit further than that and say, the bottle of wine needs to be drunk, and you need to drink it in company. And the company is a two-way exchange. That's what knowledge translation is about, really. It's about we share what we've got, we listen to what you've got, we put it together, we try to develop it. It's intended to be a dialogical process and developmental, so it continually grows and develops according to the input that we get.
So this is a lot of what we do. We put together little workshops that inform people who in one way or another either impact sex workers' lives and workplaces or support sex workers and deliver services to them. So we tell them about what sex work is and what it is not. We tell them about the sex work stigma and how it affects our lives, so that they could make more informed decision on their service provision and maybe for the services that they could provide to sex workers, as well as how they could improve their communication with sex workers if they have to come across sex workers in their work, like police officers, for example. Anybody?
Okay, so I guess some of the things that we've talked about and are looking to develop in the future are more knowledge translation workshops. We'd like to do some stuff within the sex worker community where, again, we're responding to what they tell us they would like. Maybe it's about using technology. Maybe it's about lobbying effectively or using the media. We don't know. These are ideas at the moment.
Well, actually, one of the ideas that we had was we're going to mention it a little later, but there is a big overhaul of our NUM website that's coming on. And together with that, NUM is going to provide more services to sex workers. So once that is in place, it would be really good for us to put together a workshop to the sex workers to tell them what services are available and how to use the new interface that they get when they access NUM's website. But as with, in the best traditions of knowledge translation, as we've just described, this is not just us talking at sex workers. We can tell you what services are available at NUM and how to access them. But we also want to hear from the community what maybe further services you would like. Maybe you're not exactly happy with what we came up with and you want slight tweaks here and there, so that we can then go back to NUM and work further. And a lot of this is what we've been doing so far with the workshops that we have been providing to the police forces and service providers, who we call practitioners. We speak to them and we tell them about what it's like as a sex worker, but through our evaluation of their current knowledge, we can also see what we can tell them later in the next levels of our workshops. Another idea that we've been toying with for a while is workshops for media people and journalists who specifically write about sex workers. We would like to have some sort of workshop, like a guidelines for journalists about how to sensitively write about sex work, how to approach sex workers, how to take interviews, what safety measures sex workers will require, how important anonymity is, and again, the importance of the horse stigma and how to minimize it in your engagement with sex workers. And as I said, the digital build that's coming along. So NUM has recently received funding to develop a digital platform that will be very different from the website that you can see at the moment. As sex workers and as people with eyes, we can see that the current website can do with improvements. And this is one of the things that's going to be addressed in the development of the new digital platform. But there are also going to be many other things that this large digital platform is going to change.
So basically what we've got funding for and what we want to do, because we do acknowledge that there are issues with the inclusivity and the accessibility of some of the report forms, and we would like to make it more accessible and as easy and quick as possible to report, and to also use the other features like the number checker and the email checker that NUM already provides. So make that more accessible for users, for sex workers. We like what we say on the slide is for NUM members. With NUM members, we do mean sex workers that have signed up for NUM. And just as a reminder, it is free to join NUM if you are a sex worker, but there is a quick screening process to ensure that it's only sex workers who can access the reports and also some other parts of the members area. And that will be the same with the new website, with the new digital build. What we're also planning in the new digital build is some extra new features. So we have been talking about peer-to-peer chat for sex workers who have been victim to a crime and would like to talk to another sex worker. So that's somewhere in the build, somewhere down the line, but we are talking about it. And there are also some infrastructure improvements for internal improvements, just to reduce the workload of caseworkers and generally people that work for them at the moment. So there's a lot of changes in how the website is going to look and function.
Yes, so ideally we're hoping to have it all done by December. So maybe in January, expect a new webinar from us with how to use the new website and what services we're now providing. or maybe not. We'll see how it goes. We're doing our best. And I want to add that the new platform is making it much easier for us, for the members of the research and development team, to actually get together and work together as a team. The people you see here right now, that's not all of research and development team. We cover quite a large area, and we're all based in different parts of the UK. And while we do enjoy getting together in one geographical location physically, it's not possible to do that as often as it needs to be done. And so a lot of our work is done digitally. So the new development really help us to be efficient and hopefully, more effective for the wider sex worker community. And finally, we put a lot into NUM, and we also get a lot out of it. First of all, this is a paid job. As I said in the very beginning, we are employees of National Ugly Mugs. This is only 10 hours per month, so it's not a lot, but, and this is really important to me personally, these are flexible hours, so I can arrange these hours around my personal life, around my work, and if something happens, I like it so much and I appreciate it that NUM are respectful of the time that I need to take off, whether that's because of some personal circumstances or some mental health issues. It's absolutely fine for me to check out for a few weeks and then come back and start working again.
For me, one of the big things is we've all learnt a huge amount of skills from each other.
True.
Sharing, technical stuff, using the digital platforms has been an amazing learning experience for some of us, myself. And yeah, we share all kinds of different experience and skills that have come either from our personal lives or other working lives or whatever. It's really good.
For me, another thing was insights into other parts of sex work. There are parts of or maybe sectors of sex work that I've never engaged in. Some of that was my personal choice. I've never done camming. I don't think I ever will. I know some things about camming, not all of them, but there are some parts of sex work that I will never be part of. For example, male sex work is something that is forever off my limits. And while I knew that male sex work is quite different from what I do, the way people charge, the way male sex workers advertise, the way payment is taken, I knew all this is different. But it was finding out the details that completely blew my mind. And frankly, it just feels like a completely different type of sex work altogether. And I am very grateful for the opportunity to, basically have my eyes opened.
I think another one of the opportunities that, another one of the elements that I've gotten out of being an R&D member has been the opportunities to expand with public speaking. So there's audiences that we're able to access. There's places where we're able to share our experiences through the support of NUM, where we wouldn't necessarily have access to them before. So by doing that, we are potentially able to, again, use those experiences for good. And we're able to impact changes in ways that we maybe wouldn't be able to without. So that's been a really rewarding component. One thing we didn't say a little bit before is also that we are ongoing within meetings, like with Digital Build. I mean, there's skills that we're continually practicing and learning as far as feedback and involvement within organizations as well.
Yes, and I think as far as opportunities go, it's not just opportunities to expand our skills, it's also opportunities to speak to the audiences that as just sex workers we wouldn't really have opportunity to speak to. But as members of research and development team, we can access spaces that would otherwise be closed to us. And I think this is priceless.
I would add exactly to that, that working for NUM and with NUM has given me insight into not only the work of NUM, but like has given me access to these institutions and explained to me more how the wider working community works, but also how police forces work in the UK, how service providers for sex workers work, and how that whole environment that sex workers live in the UK is shaped, and like policy development and stuff like that. So having access to different institutions and understand, like getting insight into them, was something that I really got out of the work with the R&D team so far.
Another component that I found helpful is I know if there's something that I don't know the answer to, there is someone involved in the organization who I have access to be able to talk to who will know. So there's organizational support and resources at my fingertips, which I feel really connected with the high networks to be able to reach and find out answers when I need them.
Oh.
And finally, yes, working together and learning from each other, not just about other sectors of sex work that we wouldn't otherwise have access to, but other experiences and other ways of lobbying, other types of activism. This has all been precious, frankly. And while we're very grateful to NUM for everything that we're getting out of working for it, we want to remind you that your membership at NUM as a sex worker is free. It will be verified so that only sex workers have access to the same information that is provided to you on NUM website, but you do not have to be a member of NUM to access help and support or to report a crime against you. You can always call Hannah or Carolyn. You can see their phone numbers, their email addresses, and their work hours. And whether it is because you want to report a crime that has been committed against you, whether you need help with accessing a specific service right now, or whether you want a food voucher right now because, well, the lockdown is still upon us, they will do their best to help you. And if they don't know the answer to your question, they will know somebody who has the answer. So please call them and get the help and support that you need.